I gotta go say goodbye to your wife.
Okay, let the record reflect that a quorum of council. This is the council discussion and adoption of the town of Cape Lee's fiscal year 2015 tentative budget. The operative word there is tentative. Mr. Weddington.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. What I have presented to you in terms of the attached agenda item is the tentative budget, a draft of it. So I just wanted to go over the first slide. The budget's basically a plan. It determines the level of services and types of service provided, and it's a proposal of capital improvements. So it's basically projections of what we think things will cost and how much money we'll bring in to cover the costs of those things. So the tentative budget basically sets the maximum expenditure limitation for the town. And with council approval, though, it can be increased, or it can be decreased, sorry, and the expenditure budgets can be moved between departments and funds. So assuming that the budget's adopted today, the final budget will be published twice and will be on the 20th agenda for final approval. On this slide, we show the budget process in January. Basically, we prepared the worksheets and got the town's department managers and directors to start thinking about what their needs are for the coming fiscal year. And in March, everyone was supposed to have had all their input into their budget worksheets and prepared proposals for the town manager to review. And we prepared estimates of our revenues. Department heads did their projections for operational revenues, and I did most of the operational or non-operational revenue projections. The state provides projections for their revenues that they share with us. In April, management reviews the budget and utilizes a volunteer staff and our committee to help them do that, to get in a different perspective of concerns and answer questions about the budget. And in May and June, the budget's reviewed with the council members, and now here we sit ready to hopefully approve the tentative budget. So on this next slide, we have some of the general budget assumptions and items. Basically, the assumption is that the national, state, and local economy continues to recover, and the budget includes any changes in laws that were enacted this year, and hopefully no additional changes in law that would affect either our revenues or required expenditures take place next year. And then the the cost of goods that we purchased increased about 1.3%. That's the general CPI. Energy costs are estimated to increase about 3%. That's mostly driven by electrical. And then personnel costs, there is a expected increase in our health care, going into our plan year next year. Our plan year is January 1. Cost of living adjustments for wages, we programmed in 1.3%. And then non-contract staff may be eligible for merit increase as well of as little as 0.5% or up to 2%, depending on the performance. But the total cost of this initiative is capped at $40,000, and that can be found in the town manager's line item budget. The personnel costs also include adding several staffing changes, but the net effect is adding 1.6 full-time equivalents.
Mr. Weddington, before you go on, I have a couple of questions here, because when I met with you the other day, I didn't touch on this. Our health benefit, we're piggybacking with the state in order to get best cost for our employees. Is that correct?
Currently, we use a insurance consultant agent to purchase our insurance directly from the insurance market. We are not in a cooperative either with the state or other groups or another town or other political subdivision to procure our insurance costs,
Okay.
insurance benefits.
And
Mary Council, we did look at two other alternatives with co-ops, and the less expensive one was an increase of $50,000 to $60,000. So we did look at that option. It just didn't fit with us at this time.
I see. And the consultant advised that the costs are going to go up 10%, or he speculates are going to go up 10%?
That speculation is my own this last year. Because our plan is at mid-year, it increased about 14%, and our budget, because it was based on the whole insurance costs, actually facilitates a 20% increase with 10% on the past amounts that were incurred. So we were well within our budget constraints, even though the increase on January was 14%. Sorry.
No.
But I just wanted to point out that she does get quotes from multiple entities for almost all the types of insurance coverage that we have. I don't know if we got multiple quotes on life insurance, but.
And Council, it should be noted that for this year, 2015, insurance went up about 14%, and part of the proposal in the upcoming budget, we did increase employee contributions to the program.
That was my next question. So it's based on employee contributions as well as town contributions?
It is correct.
Okay, all right. Second question, the 0.5%, 2% on merit increase, who decides that?
It's everyone below me.
I'm sorry, everyone, what?
It's all employees below the town manager. We have a process developed by the department heads, and we go through that process as the managers go through, and they make the recommendation to myself, and I sign off.
So you ultimately,
I'm the one at the ultimate.
okay. All right. Councilman
Why do
Esposito.
you cap that at 40,000? Are you talking about a performance evaluation?
The whole aspect, yeah, we do a performance evaluation, correct. Department heads know what my cap is. We look and we try to give a merit raise to those who are deserving for the year, for the past year's performance. And I sit down with my group, to be honest with you, and we review them all, review the recommendations, and make the decisions at that time. Some folks will be 0.5%, some may be 1%, some may be 2%. So, and last year we had it at $60,000. I wrote it down at $40,000.
So there is a definite process,
Yes.
and the cap is set.
Right, I cannot spend more than $40,000 on that program. My folks know I won't spend $40,000. This year I had $60,000. To be honest, I think I only spent about 35 in that range. So,
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mr. Whiting.
Yes, Mayor, I'll continue this. Okay.
Mayor, can I make one extra comment? Sure. The previous to me was every year with 3%. And that's how staff got their raises. Every year was 3%. Where I'm from, they used to have a COLA. They used to be gauged as CIP, consumer price index. That's what we get it to. It's usually 1.5. This year it happens to be 1.3%. So I give everyone 1.3 right here in the budget to you folks, just to keep everyone extended. And then I'm used to a merit system. And that's so. I thought it was better for the employees, and I also thought it was better for the town, rather than just a flat 3% without any merit at all. Thank you.
Mr. Whiting.
So some budget highlights are that there's some organization modifications. We've moved facilities maintenance and rodeo grounds and parks from public works to building safety. And we separated parks from rodeo to distinguish it in the budget and give it more prominence, as well as the fact that there's more funding allocated to each.
What page you?
I'm sorry, in the budget book, this organization change could be seen in the chart, the organizational chart, as well as in the individual departments' budgets. So it just depends on where you want to see that most prominent. And I guess you can see the chart on page.
Mayor and Council?
Sorry.
Yes. I you know how I operate. I'm aware of the WAC's discussion. We talked about the workload on the town engineer and utilities manager. I'm very aware of that. In this budget, we've made some changes. I'm not sure the WAC is fully aware of the Water Advisory Committee. For example, we have moved, as Robert said, buildings, grounds, the rodeo, Desiree Park, out from the town engineer under Michael Baxley, the building official. It makes better sense because he maintains those facilities. That relieves that pressure on the utilities manager or the town engineer. Again, the utilities manager, town engineer, you should oversee the billing program. It doesn't make sense. It's a financial function more than a repair pipe. I moved that under the finance director. Again, relieving the responsibilities from the town engineer. So we've taken some efficiency and moved those folks around where I think they're better suited, make better sense, and relieving the pressure on the town engineer. I think WAC does a good job, don't get me wrong. I wish I had a little more conversation with personnel. I think they make great recommendations, but at the same time, I look at how we move our people around, which makes better sense, relieving the pressure on the town engineer. So, and I think those two functions will help relieve a lot of pressures.
Okay, what I understand you to say is communication could be a little bit better between WAC. You're not questioning their dedication.
No,
Okay.
When I first got here, there was a drive, a move to abolish WAC. I don't believe that. I think it's helpful to have those technical engineer eyes look at our process, and I use that instruction. Sometimes we have a different point of view, and I'm okay with that.
What I'm saying, it doesn't cost the town any money to improve communication.
It does not.
Okay.
I think it improved tonight, actually.
Well, tonight was interesting. The fund road maintenance, because I know it's important to council for our road, and at 1.2 million, that's exceeding the recommendation of the group that we hired to take a look at our roads. And they were saying you need to do at least $1 million a year just to keep pace. So I understand we're basically complying with that recommendation to keep our roads repaired.
Yes, Mayor, with this, as I've had discussion with David Princehorn about this year's budget for FY16, and he has said that it is on track with keeping us on schedule with the recommendations that were made relative to the pavement management system and other things.
Okay. Vice Mayor Lower.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, given all my discussions, that in the next budget year, that the signs in Cave Creek, the safety signs in Cave Creek, will be replaced that are under the number 50, which is a technical number for reflectivity, in keeping with the manual for uniform traffic control devices. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Well, that's my direct instructions, is that signs, high priority can be taken care of.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
pretty sure I saw a communication from Mr. Princehorn that indicated that specific thing.
Thank you. Thank you. That's my one question.
And
Robert, you know where they are. It's in the handout. You can do it. Not the book.
Right, the slide shows.
This is the executive.
And the improved parks, a great deal is dedicated to Desert Awareness Park, am I correct? Taking it step by step and.
Yes, sir. I mean, the two major facilities that receive considerable amounts of money for projects, both the rodeo grounds and Desert Awareness Park. I think the Desert Awareness Park, we funded $54,000. We're actually applying $161,000 to that project. And the parks, previously we had dedicated somewhere, he has $5,000, I thought it was $25,000, and we're increasing that to $129,000. Now $100,000 of that, $90,000 I should say, is for FEMA max. If that doesn't occur, because that's about a $900,000 grant, if that doesn't occur, that money stays in the park, the $100,000, and we'll use it for whatever facilities, whatever changes need to be made. My instructions to Mr. Baxley, who oversees that now, is to have discussions with the Foothill community, Diane and her group, and try to, let's all get on the same page. We won't be able to do everything, but we can make significant progress this year, especially with shades and the amphitheater and whatever.
Vice Mayor Lower.
Since we've been butting heads a little bit over, that's okay. I get it. I want to commend you on finding the money for that rodeo grounds, because I see that grading that rodeo grounds, we're going to attract more and bigger events. I see that as a profit center ultimately for the town of Cave Creek, and also a point of pride that is totally and legitimately consistent with our Western tradition. So whatever we can do to move the money there. I think that is something that will get paid, the citizens will get paid back for doubly, and I thank you for finding that extra money.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I think Mike actually here, he can speak better to I than on it, but bleachers by number one, I know Tracy and her group have asked for that. Electrical needs some definite work, and I know Michael's focused on that. And there's some other things, and he oversees that, and he has good communications with that group, and they're trying to make those changes.
Thanks.
Yeah, and the mayor suggests when you are looking for those things, Ritchie Auction seems to have everything under the sun. I think that. No, auction, I mean, it's, you know.
Marshall Stein is adamantly aware of them, and yes.
I mean, that's just one source, the state has their own on it.
Thank you, sir.
The only other thing on the rodeo events is I did hear Tracy mention that they didn't quite break even.
Well, I think this year, Mayor and Council, is, part of it was renting Section 5 bleachers. That's $13,500 expense ballpark. They normally don't incur. And the River Rock, they did. I believe they did something of that fashion. When we replaced Section 5, that's about, I want to say, 75,000 total. I think it's 50,000 for us in that ballpark. That will relieve them $13,000. That will be the black for them, and they can use that however they want. It's just I think this year was a tough year because they had to do their sponsor required those bleachers to be removed. They put them in and they rented. When we replaced it permanently, they'll help. It's like when we did the VIP section this year, we basically doubled the seating.
Yeah, it's no, they put on a show.
Yeah. So I think after this year, the seating, other than just general change maintenance, will be squared away, and you can really tackle the larger problems like the electrical and get some building work that needs to be done. Like I said, more specifically, Michael can speak to that if you want to, but I think we're, under Michael's guideship, he's really working in the right direction.
Wonderful. My last question is repair storm damage. This is not specific, but this does include the Spur Cross crossing. Is that
For
what
the
this
roads
is?
under her, correct. And we've done some of that work in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if they shot Creek this week, but they've been doing that, and that's on their goal.
Okay, Vice Mayor Lamont.
Yeah, I noticed that every time I come by.
Yeah.
They've widened the road, they've made it level, it conforms with standards now. I mean, I know it's not permanent, but it's safe. So that's a really good job of getting that up to speed.
I'll be honest with you, that project, Lucas, is a good example of inner workings between the water department and the public works department and Marshall Stein's office, who actually went out and saw those cement blocks and we're using the project. So all the groups are working well together and we focus. So I'm proud of it.
Mr. Weddington. Come back to you.
Okay.
Yes.
So some of the highlights for the budget, obviously you've covered the road and maintenance construction. That's from all sources that include CERT funds and the general fund. The parks, again, that was combined with rodeo before, so the dollar amounts between rodeo and parks for FY15 comparison numbers might be a little up in the air, but that's why it might be different than what Peter thought it was, just because I made the distinction between the two amounts, just to have something to compare. And then, of course, you've got the storm damage. That's the $912,000 is in the grant fund. The 10% that comes from the town is actually budgeted in building and safety. And that's projected to be $1,013,595 if we get everything we can get. So, next slide.
You mentioned River Rock before I forgot. Did I hear you mention River Rock?
The Gabion, Gabion.
To help the Gila Indian Nation has the cheapest.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've
Where the cost, you may get hit back on the cost is the transportation of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have two grants into the tribes, and under Arizona law, ones operating casinos have to give back in communities. Our argument is that Cave Creek supports those casinos, so we should get something back. I know we'll hear back, I believe it's October, if we are successful in those grants or not.
We can never have too many rocks.
Yeah. It's rocks, it's green shades. Anything else?
Well, it was the electrical service upgrade for the rodeo grounds, there's cell shades out of the vegetable park.
Even if those don't go through, we have funding in it to do that. If those go through, I won't say it's extra money, but it's more discretionary money for those projects.
Mr. Whittington, we're back to you again.
Thank you. And this slide demonstrates the total budget that includes transfers going from 2009 to 2016. 2009 and subsequent years, there was still construction and improvements going on relative to water and wastewater. And so, we have more of a norm starting in 2013 as far as the budget to sustain things as they are. And that means the capital principally is just to repair and replace and not extend or improve, except for in the case of roads, obviously. But and now we're down to $18,769,963, down from $627,996.15. So kind of gives you an idea of the total impact of the budget on the town over the years. Next slide. So this is basically kind of an organization chart of the budget. Total expenditures, this is just expenditures only, not including transfers, is $17,115,343 as proposed in the tentative budget amount. The general fund basically includes all the governmental related expenditures for general operations of governmental functions, finance being an example of one of those functions. Special revenue funds, which is the next column over, but it includes, they're used to account for revenues that have a specific designated use or legally or contractually restricted use. And in that we have the HERF fund, which is the highway user funds that can only be used on streets, highways, and their related infrastructure, whether it's to build new or to rebuild old. The Spur Cross Conservation Area Fund is a dedication of the half-cent sales tax that the council has with Ordinance 99-03. And this was enacted in order to purchase the Spur Cross property in 2001, and to get the dedication of the 2,234 acres of the Spur Cross area. And then the town purchased 80 acres, and this half-cent may have helped the debt service, which no longer exists, the purchase of those 80 acres. The grant fund was established to account for revenues that are basically intergovernmental revenues, so anything that we might be getting from another government or governmental-like entity that the money is restricted to be spent based on the grant that we receive from them. And so the only time we usually make, or the only time we can make expenditures from grant funds is if we actually receive the money. So.
And on that note, Peter and I need to talk about, the mayor had asked me to see if I could get any money from AG. And they have some construction money and some design money. Leon's gone until next Monday, but we have a new contact person.
Okay.
And I'll talk to you about that when we start in August.
Thank
And get going as quickly as we can.
Currently, if we receive all of the FEMA money and potentially some of the money that we have as kind of general grant money that's designated as unforeseen, in other words, we don't have a commitment for those funds yet, we have only a flexibility of $53,000 additional worth of grants. Now, if we don't get all of the FEMA money or all the grants that we've already applied for, the amount that we could receive from that effort would be a lot more. If the council chose to amend the tentative budget to add additional amounts for unforeseen grants, we can still increase the total expenditure budget to include that additional amount. So if you need to do that, you can do that before you accept this tentative budget. You can amend it to include that.
So Mayor and Council, what he's saying, we can put a wash item in there. We can add revenues and expenditures so it doesn't affect the bottom line. Also, regarding FEMA itself, the federal government program gives back up to 75%. If we're fortunate to do that, and at the same time fortunate enough to get state funds for the same project under either flood control or ADQ, that can be up to another 15%. We would only have to have a 10% match. That would leave up some money. Those are ifs. FEMA, at least back east, when we put in for FEMA grant, always took about 18 months. So it's been about half of that time now. I'm expecting another 6 or 7 months to have a better firm understanding whether FEMA's going to fund something or not. And we'll see where we are. But if you're concerned that 53,000 is not going to be enough for MAG or these other possible grants, my suggestion would be to increase both the revenue and the expenditure side as a wash item. It doesn't affect the bottom line. And if you don't get the revenues in under the grant, you can't make the expenditure. So, but we hold harmless at that time, especially when you consider the spending spending limitations set on by the state law. Does that make sense?
It does, and that's the only reason why council would do that, because FEMA money or any other grants, I should say, really are not predicated on what the town's tentative budget is. But it certainly is in what we can spend by the state. Says, well, if you say 17 million and change, well, then that's what you can do, even though you may get more money to do other things.
Right now, my recommendation would be, if you add anything to that, you make it conditional, but those revenues must come in for expenditures. Where the other grant is now, we don't get them, I have those monies in the budget to be spent on those projects, because I don't want to fall, I want to make sure that the screen shades get done, whether we get the grant or not. So, but anything above that, you want to make sure you receive those revenue before those expenditures in.
Okay, and what is the suggested increase of revenue, Mr. Whittington?
Actually, I would refer the question to Councilmember Esser for an assessment of what's potential from the sources he identified.
And we'll talk. We just want the money with no strings. You guys set the.
Certainly, how much do you want to give them?
That's just
You
a-
have to tell them what you're doing.
All right, so maybe the easiest way, we have 53,000 now. If you add an extra 100,000, usually they require a 25% match, so if we have another 400,000, you'd be looking at a $500,000 project under that scenario. Looking at our history and what we've got back, and we have the bike lane, which is 2.3 million, but that was a shared regional project. But as a standalone, we really get more than $500,000. So, especially, so maybe 100,000 makes sense.
Mr. Whittington?
Sure. So going down from, and these are just the special revenue funds that have program expenditures for the year that affect the tentative budget amount for expenditures for the year. So open space and trails, basically that's resources that were accumulated from a development impact fee that we no longer charge, hasn't been spent yet. Some of them may have been spent this year, may not be totally reflected in the total projected for next year to spend. That number would be restricted to the amount of the available funds in the actual open space and trails fund. So, but it's estimated to be 163,462 for the next year. And then we just covered the grant funds. So Cal Debt Service is basically the remaining general government debt that remains, and this debt service fund accumulates resources to pay for the debt service. The enterprise fund, water and wastewater, is $9,263,450. That includes both Desert Hills, Cave Creek customers, Carefree customers, all for for potable water, and then of course the wastewater treatment costs. So that's there. So next slide. So here's an aggregate of all funds, all types of funds for the entire town in terms of the types of revenues that are being generated or projected to be generated in the next year. The local tax includes mostly sales tax that the town collects, as well as franchise agreement revenue and delinquent property taxes. Even though the town currently has no imposed property tax, there's still a few dollars that are planned to come in. The local fees include building permit fee and business licenses, planning and zoning fees, engineering plan review, right-of-way and fingerprinting. State shared revenues include urban revenue sharing, shared sales tax, highway user tax, and auto loo tax. And these are all apportioned by population. So I know you've probably heard of the news that some cities are behind to have new population statistics used, and those will simply take a little bit of that money that we get from the state away from us and give it to them. But at this time, I'm holding to the state estimates. But those may be the effect, but I don't think the impact would be huge, probably less than $30,000. Then the miscellaneous includes interest, donations, rental income, or any other revenues that doesn't fit into any of the other categories. And then transfers in, that's basically transfers between funds. It's basically, as part of the adopted budget, an authorization to transfer resources from one fund to another.
Vice Mayor Lamar?
I just have one question, and I guess it has to do with going back a little bit to the open space and the trails. I guess maybe it also has to do with transfer between, I want to make sure that if in the next budget year, we have a breakthrough with the state land department of some, we have the sufficient funds that can be allocated for going forward with the completion of our open space initiative. At least getting started on it and have a substantial amount of funds to kickstart that process.
Vice Mayor Lamar, we believe that the sufficient resources and council will lies within the contingency funds that are budgeted, and the amount is on the page number.
Robert, what's the open space fund?
Oh, the open space, that particular amount is slated for basically streetscape and trails. Okay, so if you're talking about open space in terms of large land acquisition,
Yes.
we believe that if anything were to transpire in the next year, we'd still have the budget authority, the appropriation authority to be able to transfer from contingency to wherever it's needed to do
Right,
that
and I don't know
transaction.
roughly how much we have available if we.
Right, and it's page 62 of the budget document. And
Don't we have a constant revenue stream into open space land acquisition?
We do, that's the number I'm trying to get out of Robert right now.
Okay.
Yeah, on an annual basis, what is that number?
He's talking about dollars in hand, and we're talking about what we have allocated. from the
Well,
open
dollars
space.
in hand is good, but if
We need both.
the state sees a constant revenue stream, that's very helpful.
So I guess two questions.
right, so it's about $300,000 a year. Will be,
And the money at hand right now in the contingency fund?
it's $540,500.
That's great.
We do is transfer that appropriation authority from contingency to open space acquisition.
Thank you,
Robert,
Robert.
what do we have for expenditure authority under that open space to have for quarter cent, really? When you talk about it, it's going into that open space.
Well, Spur Cross Operation Fund pays for the $216,000 annual maintenance charge from the county, but the Open Space Acquisition Fund, I actually have zero planned expenditures from that fund for this next year because we didn't identify those potentials through the budget process.
Okay.
So we're okay?
Yes, if you want to spend up to $500,000.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
Let me go back to local tax for a second. When some of our businesses have the crafts people,
Correct.
right, we still haven't figured out a way to access sales tax from them.
Now, from DOR. DOR considers that a privacy issue, so I can't get individual allocations for tax per business. They do it by categories, and if there's at least 10 businesses in that category, they're listed individually, you can see what that general revenue is. But from an individual vendor or an individual store within the business, I can't tell. The only one I know of that's publicly discussed is Walmart, just because you're publicly traded and the manager has had that discussion with us. But other than that, I can't get that specific number. Now, Robert has done analysis for certain events, like, right, when you look at the change.
Okay, I'm talking about the
The
crafts.
vet-
Yeah, the crafts people. Are we getting sales tax revenue in some way, shape, or form from them?
Mayor, thank you for the question. I don't know specifically by entity, by cell. That information is available to me, and I can verify that once I am able to track who participates. At this point, all I know in general is that sales tax seems to increase during the special events. So there are more people reporting more dollars during those periods.
I'm not talking about special events, although I'm glad to hear we.
Oh, sorry. Yes, but I would consider a trade show a special
The craft
event.
show, trade shows, they're coming into town, they're taking advantage of the community, are they paying their fair share of sales tax?
Mayor and council, to be honest with you, paying by credit card, yes, because it's recorded. If you're paying by cash, if you don't
It's
see it.
cash.
Huh? It gets more
90%
difficult.
cash.
It does get more difficult. If someone goes up to a vendor and wants to buy something for
Okay, the answer is we haven't figured out.
100%.
Okay. Vice Mayor.
Council. I know we represent a lot of communities our size, larger. And this is my personal view. I'm not speaking for council here. I've looked over the years at some reports about what the highest, according to the sales contribution, the highest revenue achievers in town are. And you would look at that, and I can't remember exactly what they were. One time it was the gas station, one time it was a little Mexican restaurant up here. And I'm going, that doesn't make any sense. They have establishments that have literally thousands of people at special events who are taking up our public roads with parking, but it's a lot of it is cash business. I suspect that this town financially would get a real uptick in revenue if there was a method of auditing, somehow auditing those major businesses in town for tax revenue. Have you experienced, I don't imagine this is just unique to Cave Creek. How has that been addressed in other communities?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, other communities, the triggering event is every vendor annually has to have a business license, and one of the key requirements for the business license, which generates very little revenue, but it gives you, the government, the ability to test whether or not they're complying with a variety of laws. For example, if it's a fixed location, you can step in and check all their codes. But most importantly, they have to show you they have a transaction privilege license. And the minute they have that, but the problem is you as a city or town, you don't enforce that, DOR does. And what you've just identified is that there is a large black market avoiding sales tax.
Correct.
And so,
I mean,
my view would be, and we've had it in all my other jurisdictions as well, Jerome, I'm the town attorney in Jerome, and we have that same problem. But the person you have to talk to is DOR, and I think I can tell you through the league, maybe I work with the league a lot at the risk pool, is I'll say to Ken Strobeck, maybe we have to think through how we can help DOR enforce its rules. They aren't your rules, it's their rules. Now, my question, in most jurisdictions, the clerk is the one who polices up the business license. Is that what you do here?
Correct.
And do you have then a check off to make sure they have a transaction privilege license?
That's correct.
So you've done all you can do. But now what we ought to do is, if you can document that there are violators, we ought to get with other cities and towns, get with the league, because that will help you, cities and towns, generate revenue. I agree with you. But DOR is a policing mechanism.
How would that documentation come to light? What documentation are you referring to?
Well, I honestly don't know. Sorry, I apologize. Councilman Lipsky. I don't know how DOR would enforce it. I think they would probably, I don't know for sure. Each of those, see, they're not going to report income tax either. I mean, the problem is this is all subterranean. And so we've got to figure out a way, we meaning DOR, and have to figure out a way to police it up. You can't, other than you're already doing it now to make sure everybody has a transaction privilege license. Let me check with Kim. Let me check with the league and see, because this really does impact all cities and towns, and to see if there's a way we can help DOR enforce this. You're about to. DOR has really stepped in, and they're doing the sales tax for everybody. I don't know. Have they normally been your collector, or are you changing now?
Yes, sir.
You've always been a program city.
So, Mr. Sims, I have a question.
So my point is, now is the time. DOR is telling every city and town that they're going to be the collector. So if they're going to be the collector, now you're not changing. In Safford, we used to collect. Now DOR is collecting. I think we say to DOR, if you're collecting, what are you doing to make sure we get all our money? But the enforcement mechanism is not here, it's DOR.
So when we have our conference at the end of in September, whenever it is this something that Strobeck and the boys would consider?
Easily.
And it would be a blanket resolution from all of the small communities?
Well, it'll be everyone, but I suspect the larger ones have I don't know how they enforce it. It should be everybody except for Rainy. It should be everybody. So let me get with Mr. Strobeck, and let me see, using this opportunity, where all of you now are becoming program cities. You were, that's the last item. Some cities and towns were not program cities. They're now being forced into the DOR tent. They're the ones who can say, if we're in the tent, how are you making sure we're collecting? But I'm not holding out any hopes. I have a feeling it's very difficult. I mean, the same people who aren't paying sales tax aren't paying income tax. Well, I will check with the league and see how we can do. I'll report back to the manager.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I thought previously a way to handle this, because of all the problems you're describing, Mr. Simpson, is he just raised the business license, but unfortunately that penalizes your regular citizens who are doing everything you want, and you can't segregate out those who are coming into town for a week and say, oh, by the way, your business license is $150, but for all the residents it's $50.
I will check and get back to you.
I believe we actually can.
We can
Have a different, yeah, for businesses that come in for a brief period.
Yeah.
I believe that they can be assessed differently than full-time businesses. You know, a little bit of research I did. I'm not saying that we should do that, but I think that's something that we can consider.
Wow.
Okay, well, and I don't want to run afoul of you, grill me about giving legal advice in public. There are some challenges to that I'd be happy to talk in a session.
Again, I'm suggesting we do it.
Okay, Mr. Whittington, we're back to you again. You were falling asleep there.
Yeah, thank you. The next agenda item actually is more relative to this conversation, this current one. But, back to the slide. I actually did fall asleep. Sorry. All right. So did we covered state shared revenues? Actually, we haven't covered this whole slide. So let's go to the next slide. And then this is a breakdown, it's a little detailed, but at a high level, because it consists of all funds, and it compares last year to this year for all the major cost categories. The first one being personnel costs. You can see there's a slight increase. Services go up, and we were talking earlier about services, and there's a couple line items in services and maintenance that have gone up, and utilities to cover those third-party vendors that offer the support for the technology that's in the plant. So I just wanted to point that out. You see that bump there? There's an increase, and it is relative to the water, Cape Creek water system, Desert Hills water system. Commodities and capital stays relatively the same, and that's basically supplies. Capital goes down slightly overall. Debt service goes up a little bit, and that has to do with the town hall debt service. We have prepaid some of the principal based on calling the most current series of bonds coming that are maturing. That prepayment saved us $11,000 worth of interest. But this next year, we're planning to be back on track with our regular principal and interest schedule. So that's why there's a little bump there. And then transfers out, transfers in went down, so the transfers out are going to equal the transfers in. And so that's the reason why that decreased. Transfers in went down as well. So, all right, next slide. So again, the tentative budget caps the total expenditures for the town for the fiscal year. And what we're asking for is a motion, and if you want to consider increasing the tentative budget amount by $100,000 as indicated previously, now would be the time to do it in your motion. But we're looking for a motion of at least $17,150,343 that was in the budget document currently. So that's the end of my presentation. Now, if you have any questions at all that you haven't asked, please feel free.
I just have a couple of questions. And I may have asked you before the day we met. Things, the older situation, Nico and Dr. Beckham, that neighborhood.
Correct.
We have money in there to.
The estimated cost, Council, the estimated cost for the dioxide is about $50,000, and we have that in the budget for this year.
Okay, questions from council? Now's the time, John.
Mayor, I just had one other comment. I think Robin did a very good job on the budget. I think he did excel with the numbers, very forward. Also, one of our goals is to reduce the transfer from the general fund to utilities. As you know, utilities run in the red So they're not, it's not like an enterprise, where they're self-sufficient, we're still below. But we reduced that from about 1.2 million to about 895,000 ballpark numbers. So I thought Robbie did a very good job on that too.
Okay, there is public comment. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Lipsky.
Yeah, Rob, just very quickly, can you walk us through or run us through the major items that hit in 9, 10, and 11? That hit, if we look at these historical numbers?
Go back to the beginning. Yeah, there we go. And this is the slide you're referring to, Councilman?
Yeah.
Okay. 9, 10, 11, I actually don't, I wasn't here for those years, so I don't know.
Neither was I, that's why I'm asking.
Yes, I apologize. But it had to do with the wastewater facility, construction improvements, and the water acquisition and improvements. So that's all I know for sure. I have Marion Grunfeld, my predecessor, was very good at keeping records, and I have a complete repository of everything, everything you can imagine that, to very low level detail if you want to come by my office to inspect those documents.
So, yes.
Okay, there is public comment. Mr. Chairman.
Mayor, Council, as a part of the review process I was involved in, some things came to mind. I did budgets as a lieutenant and a captain for the city of Portland, and ours were, after my shooting, perhaps doing a budget every year was the worst thing I had to do. I know it. If you've never had to do a budget, you're lucky. What I found, I used to have, if I wanted to get another sergeant in internal affairs, or I needed to buy AR-15s, I had to not only be specific about why, but present statistics, show that I tried 2 different AR-15s, and then we'd always have to go in, and we had literally 25 citizens that we had to present to. So my point just being, I think that perhaps Peter and his staff could benefit from a class on how to actually do a budget. Because there should be goals and objectives, and if your goal and objective is just to do your job, I don't think that's a proper budget. And certainly by not basing anything on subjective criteria, except for the town engineer who presented. I really think it was parochial at best. So I think in the process, there can be improvements.
Mr. Chairman, public comment, Mr. Wicker. Mr. Smith. This is past your bedtime, Mr. Smith.
Yes, it is. Terry Smith, Westside. You all know me, I think. I don't know, just a couple of things came to mind and may not even be appropriate, one of them. And one was the big talk about the rodeo grounds and its potential and what it can be for this town. Clear back when I was on council, there's and I don't know what's happened to this, there's a 10-acre tract of land south of the rodeo grounds that we have started a process to acquire. I haven't heard what's happened to that, but I think that the process should be still going on. It's a BLM land that's under contract to the county that is directly south of the rodeo grounds, and I pushed in for the town to acquire it because if you're going to expand, it would be a place where, horse trailers and people to camp, it would be extra parking or whatever, and I do not know what's happened to it and have not heard anything more about it. I think as a council, we need to take a look at that because in the proposal way back then, it was they were going to give a little bit more land to the east of the existing rodeo grounds, and then the 10 acres directly south of which is a long, skinny 10 acres, 330 by 1,320 or something like that. I think that's something to be looked at. I don't think it's any cost thing. I heard that it was tied up because it's a BLM and it's under lease to the county or something like that. I think that is. The other thing is on trails. Okay, Peter, you got that?
Yes, I just spoke, Michael just reminded me, they did acquire that, the town does have that 10 acres, and that's where we expanded the parking. I think we put, Michael has a better sense, 75 parking spots done. So the town didn't take that under the lease, and we do utilize it. We developed, I think, roughly half of it.
That's thanks to me. I did that.
I appreciate
One
that.
thing I did.
Where's our sheet, Jerry?
What's that?
Where's our sheet?
The other thing is, of course, on trails, there's money in there, and as you know, Bambi works hard, and it takes a long time to get these projects going. And it's just good to keep the money there so that when they do pop up, and we do get the approvals from the Maricopa County to put the trail in, or we get approval through a lawsuit or something else, that we need those funds available so we can finish those projects. So I'm happy to see that the funds are still there, and I always think it's important to mention that. Thank you.
Public comment is still open.
Just, Mayor and Council, just to make you aware, as you know, we have some funds that are in reserve accounts from the old impact fees, and Mr. Smith was talking about. I believe there's 163,000 in there, and right now those are allocated to earmarked toward Surrey Road Trail, maybe the Gateway, and definitely the Morning Star, once those issues get resolved.
Okay, I'll make the motion. Motion to adopt the Town of Cave Creek fiscal year 2015-2016 tentative budget totaling, and I'm going to bump it to $500,000, $17,615,343. Adoption of the tentative budget caps the total expenditures of the fiscal year 2015-16 budget. Following the approval of the tentative budget, expenditures can be moved within the budget or lowered, but the overall total expenditures cannot be increased.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Mr. Bunnington, excellent job once again with the listing council. Gratitude to the Citizens Committee, always come through. And to you, Town Manager, you stressed about this budget. I wish you wouldn't stress so much, but on the other hand, I'm glad you do stress. Someone has to stress about the money aspect of it. But you actually do stress about it.
I have to wait here.
Thank you.
More than when you started.
Councilman DeBarge, you have a second?
I'm proud of the process. I know that the town manager has listened to each of us and made adjustments that conform to priorities that we bring to him from our citizens. We appreciate that, and we also appreciate the way that our staff has interacted in order to come forward with a budget that's professional.
Vice Mayor Lamar?
Yeah, in particular, I want to, and I meant to, I stopped by on Spur Cross and thanked the guys that were putting down those concrete things and said, you guys are doing a great job. I'm glad to see it. My wife almost got killed in that intersection when it was one way. I mean, getting this close. And so that's sort of personal to me. So here's my thank you though. Thank you for finding the money to get the signs started and get those dangerous conditions that too long existed in this town done before we had this budget process, because I know you had to squeeze to get that money in, and I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll come to you, Councilman Esser.
I just wanted to thank both the town manager and the finance director. It's one of the best, simplest budgets I've ever seen.
Councilman Funk?
Mary had 500,000. Was there stipulations on what that was? We were discussing that before as far as.
It was
Grants.
possibility of
Grants.
I understand it to be grants.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's,
it was an expenditure.
well, can we get that actually in there and I'll be all for it.
Oh, you want specifics?
You can certainly go after it.
Yes, he wants it in the grants, both revenue and expenditures. That's
Yeah.
my impression. That's our understanding, Robert.
Yes.
In the grants, okay, I'm good.
Councilman,
Thank you.
Well, having attended the Leagues of Cities and Towns for budget, I was wondering, based on something that went there, is Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. Have we ever applied or followed that at all?
I don't know.
Are you aware of what it is?
Yeah, yes, Councilwoman Clancy, that's an award that's given by the Government Finance Officers Association. currently received a Napoleon Award for our annual financial statement. That award for the distinguished budget presentation is a larger effort than's been undertaken here, and would maybe include additional elements that we haven't included relative to our size. It's probably an adequate effort, but the checklist that's available on the GFOA's website has precluded me from submitting this for the Distinguished Budget Award, just because I deem it not to be up to the standards that are listed on the website.
Well, having gone presently through a lot of this and what they have in there, I would say you're hitting very close to the mark.
Thank you very much.
And I'm, in lieu of what others have said, from citizens, we're trying to listen and hear, and I think that this budget really has reflected what the citizens are looking for. So I think you've done a great job, and maybe in the future we can try and go for that. Thank you.
Councilman Lipsky.
Yeah, I just want to say clearly, the town of Cave Creek has full confidence in you.
Thank you.
They had no comment whatsoever, and I think you've done a very good job. I've appreciated everyone's efforts here and your responsiveness, everyone's responsiveness in the process to what we've had to say, what citizens have had to say.
This year, Mayor and Council, it's a little different with the election we've had to do. I'm expecting more participation next year, just because everyone held more time.
Carrie, this is financial. The roll, please.
Councilman Esser?
Yes.
Councilman Bunch?
Yes.
Councilwoman Clancy?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilmot?
Yes.
Councilman McGuire?
Yes.
Councilman Lipsky?
Yes.
Mayor Francia?
Yes, unanimous vote, 7-0. It carries. Thank you, council. That is the time of the budget. One last item. Council discussion and approval of resolution R 2015-21 authorizing the mayor to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the town of Cave Creek and the state of Arizona Department of Revenue for the uniform method of administration, collection, audit, and licensing of transaction privilege and use taxes imposed by the state or town. Mr. Wayne.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This IGA was formed by representation from the League of Cities and towns and the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue has noticed to us that they are terminating our IGA effective June 30th. So it's important and imperative that we continue to receive their services, and this IGA is what facilitates that. And it basically spells out the kind of what they do for us and what types of information they give us. And I just wanted to also point out in our previous conversation, the Department of Revenue has a method or process whereby I can request an audit of an entity. They do provide audit services, and we also have the option of hiring additional talent for audit services. Of course, they have to be DOR trained, certified, and go through DOR's processes, which is different than in previous years. And that's kind of a new requirement as of this year. This IGA is in conformity with all the new legislation that's occurred since our last IGA, and it ensures actually that we're going to be getting more information about people who pay us. So it's a good thing. They're going to keep better records about location relative to the payers. So we'll have better ideas of what to pursue and who to pursue and how to pursue those. So I believe this is a good thing for the town. Unfortunately, this also is coupled with the change of legislation or the budget process of the state, where the town is going to be required to pay DOR for its services, which it rendered for free in prior years. So I think that cost is estimated to be $10,000 or $11,000 cost. It's included in the finance budget, and that's based on a proration of all the other entities in their population. So that's basically what it covers and what it includes.
Questions from council? Anything else, Mr. White? There is public comment on agenda item number 8. Okay, hearing and seeing none, thank you, Councilman Bunch. Please.
Move to approve resolution R 2015-21, a resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of Cape Creek, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the town of Cape Creek, the state of Arizona Department of Revenue, for uniform method of administration, collection, audit, and licensing, transaction privilege, and use taxes imposed by the state or town.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, Councilman Bunch.
Yeah, we have to do it, we have to do it.
Councilman Esser, you have a second?
I do, and it sounds like a good idea, and we need to do it.
Anything else from council?
Yeah, now
Vice
that,
Mayor Lamont.
now that we pay them, maybe they'll give us a higher percentage of the actual taxes.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes clearly have it. Thank you, council. Have a good holiday, July 4th coming up. Motion to adjourn, council. Motion to adjourn, council. So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Sims.
Yeah, I'll check with the OR on the audit. You're paying for it, now you should get it.
That's exactly right.
Wait, is the money in the budget supposed to help things that my daughter? Get out of here.
Uh-oh.
You heard that woman say, you don't budget, what?
Terry, that's Terry. Hey, here's the thing. Terry, buy dry wash. Buy dry wash. Get that going out of here.
You gotta love this town, don't you?
Yes, sir, we were talking about.
So curious to know what
Mark and I agree.
Well, I need to, I mean, I signed it.
Bill, Merle.
Yes, sir.
Will you tell us about the,
I got mine, so there's probably very.
Let me see, I gotta speak up louder.
I don't know.
I know. I do remember your project, but I didn't know you.